Well, good evening. Thank you for joining us for our Sunday night service here at Bay City Baptist Church. Tonight, we're going to continue with our theme of missions, as this weekend we were supposed to have our missions conference. So tonight, we're going to hear from Pastor Dave, our 100 Words series that we have. And then we're going to have an interview with Pastor Ray down at Lakeshore Baptist Church with a couple of our missionaries, Toby and Cherie Curtis, who were in Zambia. And so I hope that you'll stay with us tonight, listen through to the end. And I know that this will be an encouragement to your heart as we see how the Lord works in different ways in different people's lives. And may God bless you as you join us tonight.
Hello, everyone. It's Pastor Dave here, and it's time for another 100 Words. Eventually, we'll get back to doing this on Sunday nights together, but for tonight, here we go. Our word tonight is the word forgive. I think this has probably got to be a favorite word for us because we know that this is what Jesus and what God has done for us. And we'll see this in Psalm 103, 8-14, and Ephesians 4:32. Well, here's our definition for forgive, and there's so many different ways we could say this, but we got to summarize it somehow. So the word forgive means to wipe the slate clean, to pardon, to cancel a debt. We could think of it as to let something go. When we wrong someone, we seek his or her forgiveness in order for the relationship to be restored. It is important to remember that forgiveness is not granted because a person deserves to be forgiven. Instead, it is an act of love, mercy, and grace. And so I love the way Psalm 103, verses 8-14 kind of puts this all together, because it brings so many elements together, and it defines forgiveness with the perfect foundation of God's mercy and grace. So I'll read for you starting in Psalm 103, starting at verse 8. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. And of course, we need that same idea in our heart in order for us to be able to forgive. Verse 9, he does not always chide, nor will he keep his anger forever. He does not deal with us according to our sins, nor reward us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his mercy toward those who fear him. And then a famous verse, I think for a lot of us, we love this, right? As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us. And then compassion comes in. As a father shows compassion on his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. And why? Well, verse 14 says, for he knows our frame, he remembers that we are dust. So if we have that same kind of mindset that God has, and we can, then it will be so much easier for us to forgive. So I would encourage you, as you think about forgiveness, think about having the right heart behind it and not just doing it in some sort of mechanical way. And then this famous verse also, Ephesians 4:32, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. Okay, so I like that word tender-hearted there. When we have a tender heart and when we're tender-hearted to other people, then we just have a tendency to forgive. So we forgive, you'll notice in this verse, we forgive because Christ forgave us. And what a privilege it is for us to represent God in that way. So that's our word for tonight, forgive. Next time, fruit of the Spirit. We'll see you next time.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here with us today. We certainly have Toby and Cherie Curtis here, missionaries to Faith Children's Village in Zambia. So we wanted to give you a chance to get an update from Toby and Cherie. As many of you know, God has led them off of the mission field and back home. And we wanted to give a chance to you to hear an update from them, to hear what God has been doing, and to hear what God has done through their ministry over the last couple of years. So,
yes, we would normally have a chance to meet with each one of you or to many of you. and just answer some of the questions that you might have concerning our leaving, concerning what's being done over there. But obviously, we haven't been able to do that with the virus going around and distancing and all of that that's in place. Well, this is some questions that we came up with that it might be things that you want to know, and we're here to answer them.
All right. Well, fantastic. So at least we have an opportunity to do it this way, right?
Yes.
You know, God closes a door, he opens a window. So I guess this is the window, right? Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Let's start with, can you guys explain to us how it is that God led you back home?
Yes. You know, mission boards tell you how to get to the mission field. Nobody tells you when God brings you to that point, how you come back, you know. And so that's been new territory, I think, for us. But so as we went over to Zambia, we had a whole list of things that we wanted to do. Development things, ministry. And I think a lot of those happened quite rapidly, to be honest. Whether it was wells or boreholes or developing farmland, a lot of that happened quite quickly. And so as that progressed, and we trained people, and we seen that things were going quite well. And we could see after about 2.5 years that what we were doing was being phased out because of those we've trained under us. And so we had focused more on not just farm, but also on the community Bible study or some kids classes and things like that. The catalyst that really caused us to make this decision at this time was Cherie's leg. You know, she had 2 surgeries before we went. She had a hip replacement surgery in South Africa. And after about a year, it started to really, really affect her, what she could do at Faith Children's Village. Yep. And so we, you know, sought the Lord and what we should do. We sought our mission board. It's never an easy decision. I don't want anybody to think we just made a snap decision.
Oh yeah, I remember these phone calls that we had back and forth, and we prayed for, I think, months. We prayed before you guys made any decisions. So.
Yeah, and we spoke to our mission board. We spoke to other missionaries, you know, and trying to get a feel for that, because it's not an easy decision. But we felt between things developing on the field with the projects we had done and the Bible study, and then with Cherie's leg, that the time was to bow out gracefully at that point. We didn't want to continue to be a hindrance, excuse me, with what the Zambians could now take and run with.
Yep.
And then, you know, if you know my wife, she has a high pain level. And so I would have been crying quite badly early on. She continued to soldier on with medication. So we tried to get some tests done as much as we could last fall in Alaska, trying to eliminate some things. We just need to continue doing some things. So her health was a big reason to come back, but also I could see that the Zambians needed to do, and they were looking forward to running with some of the technology we'd put in place.
Yep.
And so it wasn't actually a sad goodbye as far as the farm goes. It was good to see things progressing and the Bible study progressing. So, but I think it was a combination of those two things, that we had kind of accomplished what God had sent us to do, and Cherie's leg had really kind of made a decision for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing to me. I got the chance, of course, to go over and visit Toby and Cherie this last year. It was amazing to me to see how much had been accomplished. So that was my second time in Zambia, and we got to go out to Camille, and we got to see the church and see the beginnings of a new work out in the bush, you know, just a few miles off the Congo border. Just really, really neat.
It's exciting,
Yeah, to see a new church going, and as well, just to see all of the progress of the things that were there. That you guys had done. So how is the farm doing this year? So obviously before you guys came, there was a little bit of stuff going, but now there's, I mean, just so much more. Explain to us a little bit about how the farm is doing.
Well, so when we were in Alaska last fall, dealing with Cherie's doctor appointments, that was the planting season. And so they planted the big field, which is probably about 35 acres. They did really well with that. They had a few problems with calculating, seed spacing and stuff, but not too bad. So when we went back, and the field was going good, and when we left in March, stuff's 10 feet tall, and the cobs are good.
The corn there is just, it's different. I mean, we're in farm country here in Wisconsin, but their corn is just way bigger than what we grow here.
The stuff that really produces is really tall. Yeah, and so over the years we experimented with, crop rotation and different varieties, and I think they've taken some of that to heart. But what the farm has really done in the last 3 years is we put in a hammer mill, and then with the planter we implemented with the tractor, and so now they can plant it on their own land. They can take it, dry it. We implemented some corn cribs, some maize cribs to get it off the ground and off the termites and all that stuff.
Yeah, because naturally they just pretty much throw it on the ground.
They throw it on a tarp,
on a tarp on the ground, and they lose it to the ants, and they lose it to water and mold.
You lose a percentage of that, and so we did that and got that up, and that worked really well. It dried the maize out well and didn't lose to mold and things, and so got the planter, we got the storage, and then we did. The sheller was there before we got there, actually, and then from there, now they can take it to the mill. One of the missionary teams from Wyoming helped us build this building, and we put the corn mill in there. Now they can mill it, so it gives them the ability to plant it all the way to getting it milled to putting it on the kids' table. And so now with the craziness of the virus, and even before that, with the kwacha, the dollar amount really dropping for them, they don't have to go into town and deal with those high maize prices.
Yep.
They got what they what they planted, and they just mill it and take it. And so it's right there from the field to the table for the kids, and it's been a big blessing for them. It's kind of stabilized that budget on food for them a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So how much corn are they producing? I mean, would you say they're producing, 50%, 100%, or more than they need for...
well more than they need, yeah. So when we planted 2/3 of the field, they got double what they needed. When they planted the whole field, they'll probably get 3 times what they need, and so they do sell off some excess.
Yep.
The problem is storage, and so once you shell the things, you got rats and you got bugs and weevils and all these things, and so they sell, and they probably keep, I think, about 250 kg bags, so 100 pound bags, and that's more than they need, but it's enough now that they have more children. It does really well. So we've really tried to make from the beginning an efficiency in the maize, because that's their staple food, and so the corn. And we really have seen that since we got there in those 3 years, that it really took it to a new level of efficiency.
Yeah.
And so even I think they appreciated how it took less manpower and things like that to get it done. So it gives them more time to do other things. It saves them money, because that really gives them a food security. If you talk about these third world countries, food security is a real need, because they don't know where their next stuff's coming from.
Yeah.
Here it gives them a little bit more security.
Yeah, the African bush, there's just not grocery stores all over the place, right? That they could just go to.
No.
So everything's a trip to town, or but having food, of course, produced on site is really cool.
And so we did introduce other things like drip irrigation. 3 wells were put in for farming type use.
The orchard, right? You guys plant an orchard.
So we put an orchard in of citrus and papayas and things that they can eat. And so, that's a long-term goal. And so they were starting to produce, like they had limes and some oranges last year and things like that.
Yep.
And bananas, and they had, a bigger section of bananas now. And so they have some of those things that, 5 years down the road will really be producing.
Yep.
And so vegetables are one of those things where different times of the year you grow different things
Yep.
because of the bugs or too much water or not enough water. So we're hoping the drip irrigation will stabilize some of that in the dry season. So, yeah, so there's a lot of usable technology that we've left behind that they understand how to use it, and so hopefully that'll go forward.
Yeah, fantastic. So now you guys put up a number of different buildings and structures while you were there, right?
We did.
Okay, you talked about the hammer mill building, which is down on the back side of the field there,
It is.
right? Of course, you're leaving your house,
Our house, yep.
and what would the purpose of your house end up being, at least as far as you know?
As far as we know, and our intent.
A guest house of some sort for people who are over there for a certain reason, medical, to help at the medical center or to help at the school or even in the farm, and then teams that come and want to stay, a group that wants to stay in the house, and it's real comfortable. It's all set up for them.
Yeah, it's real nice.
Ready.
I spent a week there. It was, very good, very comfortable.
I think that's a need that Faith Children's Village always had, was some place they could put guests.
Yep.
And it was always a struggle because some people might want to come and do an intern at the school or the clinic, and there was just no place to put them. And so it'll be a blessing from that. You know, that was our hope, that it continued to be used for that, and they agreed with that. So
So with the boreholes, of course, came water towers.
water towers,
Water towers, kind of makeshift African water towers. A couple of metal ones. I think one of them was on a termite mound, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Get it higher.
Yep.
It works good. You know, provided some of that water went to the church.
Yep.
The community church, so that some community water, but also for the churches, they have youth activities and things on the weekends. You know, you get dirty and sweaty playing soccer or whatever, and so they had an outside wash area there, and for and some bathrooms, and so that helped them. And that was one of the water tanks we put on a termite mound there by the church. So you use what God provides.
Yep. Good. Now there was also, let's see, we put up a tractor shed kind of while we were there, right?
We did, yeah.
And then what else was there? I'm trying to remember.
We built a training center for some tool storage and farm stuff, but also Cherie had a lot of quilting stuff, and we had welding stuff and things over there. So that was adjacent to our house. And then way up front, we put in a new roadside stand.
Yep.
They call it a tuck shop.
The tuck shop, yep.
Yep, and so we put that in, and that's, is busy as you do different times of the day. People come and buy supplies. And
The hammer mill.
the hammer mill, yep. And so we probably put in several structures that really kind of changed the dynamics of the layout of how FCV works from a business farm point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're leaving a lot behind.
A lot behind, yeah. And it was fun doing all of those, working with guys like Austin and some day workers and stuff, and just to see guys work with a shovel and make cement on the ground and just a different way of working over there. And so instead of fighting it, I went with it.
Yeah.
I didn't maybe mix cement like they did, but yeah, it's amazing to see how different cultures build.
Yep.
So.
Good. Well, how do you guys feel about leaving Zambia? So tell us just a little bit about your heart as God leads you away.
Well, our top priority leading up to January when we went back, and the 3 months that we spent there, the top priority was to finish well. And we felt that to wrap up the projects that we had was really important. We made a list of that, and we continued down them. We even got feedback from them with, you have done your part. And we felt like, and we believe that we finished well what God had set for us to do, not just in the farm, but also in the orphanage with the children there, the community church plant.
Yep.
It just felt like, what's more on the project list? There wasn't much. It was done. It felt finished. Now that, with the two of us, we like to finish a project.
Yeah.
and it felt like it really was finished. Yep. And that is the good feeling. Now, of course, saying goodbyes are not fun at all. But, they may ask, for going to come back and visit, we really don't know at this time. But you know, it always have a special place, you know, in our hearts. So
Oh, it definitely changed our world outlook, our view on ministry,
Yep.
our view on working in other cultures, and it just how much we have in America and how efficient America is versus, well, a lot of the world, at least Africa, deals with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so it was humbling, but also an educational thing to take away from, you know, a different type of pace of life.
Yeah.
You know, where maybe they're not. I mean, most of them don't wear watches, you know, and so they go by the sun or whatever. And so it's interesting to see how people not only survive but thrive in the culture
Yeah.
that they're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So tell me a little bit about the church plant out in Camille. Now, FCV, if you know the area, is out. How far out in the bush? Probably if you drive out of the city there in
Yeah,
Kitway.
you're probably about 6 miles, which takes you up to an hour to drive, depending on the road condition. It's a really bad road.
Yeah, because the roads are not smooth. They're
it's
they're-
either wet and bad or dry and bad, but it's always bad.
Yeah,
If someone
always
gets
bad.
stuck there, you go around this way, and so it's a long drive.
Yeah.
So you figure about 45 minutes to an hour out.
Yep.
Camille is another 45 minutes to an hour out, even further. And it's sitting about 6 miles from the Congo border, the closest area. And so
Yeah.
it is quite remote.
Yeah, I remember when our driver, who was driving us out there when we were there, showed us his cell phone. He picked it up and he held it out to us, and he looked and he said, "Hey, look at this!" And his cell phone said, "Welcome to the Democratic Republic of Congo."
Yeah.
Because you're so close that you actually connect to the cell towers across the border.
It's
there.
true,
So
yeah.
it's out there in the bush.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was neat to see, you know, the first, probably 6-8 months, I would drive our truck out, you know, and we would do some visiting at the homes and just kind of getting permission from some of the local leaders. Can we meet here? Can we use this school? Can we? And so that was interesting to see how welcoming that culture is to,
Yeah.
you know, to let you come and sit down and visit with them. But there was really this disconnect. It was too far to really ride a bike. And if I was in town, they couldn't. And so a couple churches in Wyoming raised funds for motorbikes. And so this church plant, and Emmanuel, the young man that's going to Bible college, the Zambian, that he is going to be the pastor.
Yep.
And so it gave him a chance with the motorbike to be more independent of me. And he could go out and visit, and that really, really started to generate more of an ownership from the community.
Yeah.
Because here he is coming midweek, he's doing this, he's doing, you know, talking about baptism if they had classes or salvation questions in their home where they want to talk about it instead of only on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so that really has caused things to, I'm not going to say explode, but to in the pace of their culture develop. And to really, I think, allow them to respect Emmanuel as far as a spiritual leader for them. And so that has been good. There's about 4 believers out there now.
Yep.
And so it's not really a church yet, but, you know, some people have gotten baptized. At least one has come into the main church and used that baptismal there, and some others have expressed interest. But he's really taken that community under his wing, and we know it'll continue to go on,
Yeah.
because the Faith Baptist Kokolo, which is the sending church for him, has really backed him on that and tried to encourage him and to mentor him into this process.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not you're not out there where there is no support. There is an established local
Yes.
church there that is really driving this plant, and you were just kind of, in a sense, providing support for.
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
For
enjoyed,
Emmanuel.
you know, teaching biblical truths on Sundays. We would rotate, me and Emmanuel, and it's all different through a translator, right? It's
Yeah.
a different pace of speaking, but it was very good to see people respond to that, like teaching from Genesis or the book of Romans and
Yeah.
to say, hey, wow, well, that's what the Bible says. They didn't know that, you know, and so, and to see it change some lives. And so that was exciting to be a part of. But we could see the more it progressed, the more it needed to be Zambian, you know. And so I didn't want to be this hindrance, you know, as we went on. So that was part of you know, the process that we could see and of exiting out of that and really handing it over.
Yeah, there can be over there sometimes a mentality of maybe getting external money or, you know,
Yes.
And then kind of learning to rely on that.
Yeah, and that's one thing we never
Yeah, talk
did.
a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think, talking to other Zambians that have dealt with maybe missionaries or Western influence in the last 100 years, that if you lead someone to believe there's always going to be a handout, you create this dependency, and they'll never take ownership on their own. And when you leave, it's gone. And when somebody else comes, it's already damaged. We're the point where if you're not giving stuff, they're not going to follow or listen or whatever. And so from day one, working with the Zambian church that was sending us, we didn't give anything out. We didn't ask for them to give any money. So we always made sure this is not prosperity gospel.
Which is a huge problem in Zambia.
It's a huge problem.
If you know the area, there are prosperity churches all over the place, they are definitely apostate. They're not another flavor of true Christianity.
Right.
They are not gospel preaching churches. Yeah.
And so our goal right off the bat says, you'll never hear us ask you for money, for give us this and we'll give you healing, or, you know, all that kind of stuff that goes on. And so after a while, some people come and say, this is different here. You preach the Bible, but we don't see any, you know, just you give us this, we'll give you that type of deal, I guess. And so, in fact, we never gave anything until you guys came out with the VBS, you know, and the candy and stuff, which is totally fine in that context. But every Sunday we didn't give out candy so the kids would come. And the kids would come in droves. We would have 40 kids, you know, in the youth room.
Yeah.
The two rooms we had.
By the way, youth room was like 12 by 15, and the kids literally sat on top of each other. Literally on top of each other.
Yeah, and then the other side, you know, we could get in, you know, we'd probably get a dozen Americans in there, but 25, 30 Zambians would fit on these little benches. And so typically, though, I think you're looking at about 10 people or under on a given Sunday for adults and 30, 40 kids.
Yep.
But as it progresses, as God moves, hopefully it'll develop into a church with some local leaders and things.
Yeah, but like you said, a gospel light and not built on any kind of craftiness or any kind of material gift giving, but a legitimate shining light in the bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was cool. Cool to see. Now, you guys came back at a very interesting time. So with the coronavirus pandemic, tell us a little bit about your trip back. I know you guys had said to me it was a little bit like being in a made-for-TV, one of those made-for-TV disaster movies, like the world was falling off behind you as you went along the way. Yeah, tell us about your trip home.
Yeah. Well, right from the very beginning, we get to the airport in Zambia, and they tell us that flight is not only canceled, but the last one was the day before. And it's not going to be for at least a month.
Oh, wow.
So we had to reschedule flights. We had to, the ones that are canceled, it took probably an extra 20 hours added to that trip that is normally very, very long.
Oh, it's a long trip.
It was sketchy at times. There was many times when we thought, how is God going to get us through this?
I remember when you guys were calling and letting us know, because we were picking you up on this side, right? It was like I was just praying, God, please, if they can't get all the way home, don't let them leave, because you don't want to.
We'd rather be comfortable there. Yeah.
You'd rather be stuck at FCV than stuck in Nairobi or some other place along the way. Yeah.
Yes, and that just the airports alone, it was like ghost airports. I mean, there was hardly anyone there. There was a lot of masks. There was a lot of it seemed like there was a lot of fear just that was around. But, God got us here, and we were so relieved to see Pastor Ray at the Chicago airport to pick us up. I was just like,
Yeah.
but, and then since then, with the quarantine, very comfortably in the basement at your place. But it's just nice. I mean, we have all the water, electricity we need. We have food that's tasty.
Yeah.
And even with my hip and leg pain, that there's a lot of less pain because I'm resting a lot more with the quarantine.
Yeah.
So it's been good. Good since we got back.
Yeah, good. I remember that look on their faces when I picked them up. I was priceless. It was like, oh wow, I've never seen someone so happy to see me before. So maybe my wife when I come back from a long trip.
There you go.
Oh. Well, now that you guys are back, you talked a little bit about this, about what's continuing on after you've gone. But can you just kind of make sure you fill in all those gaps for us? What's continuing on?
Yeah, and so I think you're going to see FCDV doing more things for themselves. An example of that is I taught Austin how to weld. And so now Austin can take those skills and the equipment we've left behind for that. He can make new gates, make new fences. He can fix windows because everything over there is either concrete or it's metal.
Yep.
And so he knows how to do both. And he can, we came back last year and he'd built a new roof and stuff for a new storage building that they had done while we were gone. And so to see what he'd taken and continued with it, and it wasn't just him, it was some of the other guys he was also teaching under him or with him. And so that will continue.
And these are normally things that Toby would be doing there,
Yeah.
that they learned alongside him, and then now they're continuing.
Yeah, year one, I did it
Afterwards.
all.
Yes.
And then year two, I tried to get him to do it or other guys to do it. And by, towards the end there, they were doing it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to,
Work yourself out of a job idea.
Yeah, that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
So those type of skills will continue. I think, the tuck shop will continue. The hammer mill, obviously, they really, really like that.
Yeah.
That will continue. And the farming as well. So
Well, and the hammer mill is not just for FCV, right?
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
yeah, and so when it was donated, it was to be for Faith Children's Village to be able to mill their own food, but also the community is surrounded by just subsistence farmers in the Cocolo area there, and so they can bring their shelled maize and get it milled, and then we can charge them for the fuel and for some labor and stuff.
Yep.
So not a huge money maker, but something that will probably pay for repairs and some salary and stuff. And so it's good. But what you see is instead of somebody milling, 50 pounds at a time, they might mill a gallon because that's their lunch or that's their supper. And so it's a different way because they don't have refrigerators, and they don't have, and so it's really the community will come to depend on that.
Yeah.
Like there was a hammer mill maybe a kilometer away. When that broke down, everybody would come to the FCV one.
Yep.
And so it's something that will continue there.
And normally FCV would take bags of this maize and bring it all the way into town, have it milled there, and then bring it all the way back. This is eliminating that whole thing where they just have to mill it
And on the road.
and eat it.
And the fuel
Yes.
cost and the
Yeah.
breakdown
Yeah.
and somebody taking a whole day just for that. So, yeah, anytime you go to town, it's a whole day lost for that worker. So, yeah, it's much more efficient, but it also provides something for the community.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, good. So I interrupted you there. You were talking about what will continue after you go.
yeah, I think some other things that we've done. We've
The
done some
infrastructure alone will obviously
Yeah.
continue. Then
Water,
Yeah.
running water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in more locations, right?
running water. You have
Yeah.
roads that we built, fences that we built.
Yeah, because you guys, you moved the road. I remember you telling me, right? You moved the road because there was a jostling in the property lines that happened, right, with the government. So
Yeah, with the government, so
Yeah.
they had it surveyed, but then when GPS came out, they realized it was all about 50 yards off. And so before we even got there, they had traded land, farmland, for this guy's land right by FCV, and they did a swap. So when we got there, it was all just jungly bush, you know.
Mhm.
And so we moved the road, moved it, and that gave FCV a buffer of farmland in between the school,
Yep.
because all the traffic used to go right by the school, you know, within 20 yards.
Yeah.
And so it really calmed that area down.
Yeah.
Dust, mud, all that stuff. So there's things that we did, infrastructure that will. I mean, I look at Google Earth now and I'm like, yeah, we did that. You know, or we took down a big, huge termite mound, which you know are quite huge.
Oh, and they're hard. We were swinging a pickaxe on a termite mound. I don't know. Maybe I'll put some pictures or something in the video here afterwards. But
Yeah.
man, we were swinging at that. It looks like it's going to fall apart, but it is like rock solid. Yeah.
It's concrete, yeah. And so we, you know, we tore a big one down and made a soccer field right by the couple of the houses there, so the younger kids could play within sight of the house moms. And so that's something, you know, things like that seem small, but when you see the kids using it, you know, and you're like, well, that was a big thing to them,
Oh yeah.
you know. So swing sets and things like that.
And many of the things that they say, as they look around there, they think of Toby and Cherie and just our time there and what we have made it better for them in the orphanage.
Yeah, simple things like a
It's
chicken pen.
all through, and we were there possibly because of sending churches like Lakeshore and people that have supported us faithfully and monthly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, one of the local pastors there at Pastor Munisa, he's like, you guys, when we were saying goodbye, he goes, you guys came at just the right time. So just the right time for what they needed, and that's God's doing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think,
Yeah. It was fun to watch God kind of move you through that process, even as He took you. And
right?
I remember standing on that property when we were talking about the Chande project. I remember standing on that Chande and just out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And thought it'll take years to be able to do anything out here, you know. So you know, when God moved you over to FCV and brought you into something that was already partially established, you guys were already in that mindset already.
Yeah, we hit the ground running because
Hit the ground
of that.
running, yeah.
Yeah. There was not this delay of a year or two of just trying to get a house or safety, you know. I mean,
and it felt good, you know, all the way through.
yeah,
Yeah, the Lord is definitely in it.
yeah. It was neat to hear them say, wow, you really showed us things we didn't think were possible. And so I think they now want to continue with some of those possibilities.
Yeah, so there's an investment in
Yeah.
infrastructure and in properties, in people,
Yes, and people know.
in supporting the church work. So, yeah,
Yeah, we left some good friends. It was hard, whether they were fellow missionaries or our Zambians that we worked with. That was a difficult thing, you know. But we look back at those times as God given and relationships developed, and we will see them again someday.
Yeah.
If not here in heaven, you know. So
yeah, praise the Lord for that. So you think you guys will go back and visit?
It's hard to know at this point. We'll continue to check in on my leg, and we'll be established with jobs and stuff once we get back in. It would be good to have prayers for that, for anyone that wants to know what to pray for us about as we get established. And my leg pain, maybe getting to the bottom of that. And just continue to pray for Zambia, too.
Yeah.
Pray for the orphanage there and all the children. They had many new ones came at the very end, that last month.
Yeah.
And to just get them through that very godly orphanage and the director that's there. And
Yeah. Yeah,
as they
I was impressed as I
disciple.
met with the guys there and heard their philosophy of ministry, and they have a uniquely Zambian way of doing ministry, right?
they do.
But it's I believe it's a godly way. You know, as you step back and look, you can see the Spirit of God moving and working, and I really believe it's a good organization there, good men, good women who are serving the Lord there. Yeah.
It is, and it was nice to be able to not have say doctrinal differences.
Yeah.
You know, that would hinder ministry. You know, we believe the same thing. We preach the same truth. The kids there was no confusion from the kids' side.
Yeah.
It was all a unified sharing of the gospel. And so faithful people still serving there. The virus has not affected Zambia like the rest of the Western world. I mean,
Yeah.
or South Africa or anything. I think I was looking yesterday, 3 confirmed deaths and under 100. You know, whether they're getting tested or not, but there doesn't seem to be, especially around FCV, there's not that panic and fear.
Yeah.
And so it's good to isolate the kids from that, you know. And obviously schools and stuff are closed, but it's a unique time for them as well. The children are there all day, not just going to school. So I think there's opportunity for ministry from the church with the kids. There's opportunity, you know, for work projects and things. So, but pray for Zambia. They do not have health structure that we have. But overall, they seem to be doing well at FCV from what we've heard. So. There's still snakes. We've heard that. The snakes are still prowling and stuff. But they know how to take care of those. So, yeah. And I think this harvest this year is going to be an amazing harvest from the maize we seen when we left the corn. I mean, it's going to fill up those corn cribs I built plus some. So it'll be good. And they'll be able to continue on with that.
Yeah. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Now, where are you guys going from here? Like, what are your next steps?
Yep. So we from here we're going to make our way up to Alaska. You know, Alaska's where Cherie's from. That's why I met her years ago. But our daughters have moved up there. Twyla moved up there last year. Carrie's been up there for several years. And so, you know, I think the older you get, the more you want to be around family. And so we're going to move up there. And I don't know what God has for us for jobs or for ministry, but you can't really predict anything, in you know, with the virus and stuff going on, you know. And so we'll see when the economy opens for jobs and things. But there are a few good churches we've visited up there already. Yep. That we may.
Well, you guys did Bible college up there, right?
We
so
did.
You know a little bit about the area.
We do
Obviously,
know a
your
little bit
family's
about the
from there.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lived up there for 5 months. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we kind of looked at those things because, you know, a good local church is important, and so we can't take you guys with us like we wish we could.
Although I think some of our folks here would love to move up to Alaska with you.
Yeah.
At least in this area, Alaskan's kind of like a siren call for people. They just kind of keep moving up there if you like those rural areas.
A new church plant. Huh?
There you go. Maybe we need to plant a new church up there. I'm feeling this.
That's right. So so that's where we'll be heading. So we're hoping that we get through the border just fine, and the vehicle runs fine, and we'll get up there, and then we'll start to establish a new area where our daughters are.
Yep.
So,
feet back on the ground. So I know you guys are asking people to support you through June, if possible, right?
If possible.
Yeah, just because it takes time, you know, especially in the quarantine. I know Toby and Cherie they're living in my basement right now, right? Because this is a place they could get here, and you know, I know they've been working hard. They've been phone calling and trying to get around and putting things together as much as they can. But I can tell you guys are just antsy to get moving. I know you're anxious to see the girls and
get on the road and get there. Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, we've been very, very thankful for you and your family and for your support during all these years, and as well as even you know now.
Yeah.
But we just want to thank the supporters, whether individuals or churches, for following God's leading and supporting us in Zambia. It's always humbling to see people give, you know, and give faithfully.
Yeah.
Month after month, year after year, or whether you did an annual or a special one time. It was always humbling to see that God called somebody to give to his work, and you're just kind of the conduit, you know? Yeah. And so that was always an amazing thing. It still amazes me. And again, that changes us and how we view our giving in the future as well, because we're like, okay, God needs something done. We need to step up. And so I think a lot of things about the mission field change the way you view ministry.
Yeah, I know even short trips change your perspective, right?
They do.
So I know what God has done in you guys over the last 3 years has changed you. I can even remember when I first met you. You were maybe a little bit more worldly in your perspective. I know as I've known you over the last oh, yikes, how long have we known? Probably 10 years.
10
Maybe
years,
about 10
yep.
years. God has really just been changing you. Cherry's she's been sweet. She's been sweet as whatever since
She's
the,
been
since the
perfect since
beginning.
day one. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fun to watch from a pastoral perspective. Fun to watch God really transform you over these years.
We all have rough edges, right? So still have them.
Yeah.
But
Except for Cherry, she doesn't have it. Yeah. So we thank the Lord for what He has done.
Amen.
You know, I was counted a blessing to be able to be a part of what God has been doing with you guys over these last few years, and to just watch God work.
Yeah.
So, and to see what He has done to answer the prayers of the Zambians, to involve you guys in ministry, really to grow all of us in faith
Amen.
through this process. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's been so much fun.
It has. Yep. Wonderful. Well, we thank you.
Well, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, if they want to contact you personally, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, contact you personally?
Right now, as we're transitioning around, probably our email.
Okay.
So most of you have that. It's curtist@globaloutreach.org.
Okay.
And so
And how long will that stay active?
I would probably say they'll let us keep that to the end of the year, I would guess.
Okay.
So, and then we can inform people after that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for spending time with us today, and I know those of you who are watching this, I hope you've been able to see just the glory and wisdom of God at work, because He is at work not just where we live, but He is at work all over this world, doing things that are glorious. And if you can just see just a small glimpse of what God is doing, it just helps us to respond in even greater praise and greater thanksgiving, because God is doing His work and He's using us to do it, and it's fun to be a part, isn't it?
Amen.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yep.
And we trust that as you go forward, the Lord will engage you in new ministries. And
Never say never.
who knows? Who knows what God is going to do?
Yeah. Amen.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.